Hi there, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Cindy. I'm also known as the So-So. If you have come across me on Instagram, I'm typically a short form creator, but I am also a sewing pattern designer and a newly fashion designer. So I've done a couple runway shows. Today I'm going to walk you through how to sew the bog tee. This is the first sewing pattern that I released in 2022. In case you're wondering what the heck the bog is, it's a 2,000-year-old concept of a clothing design. And what I have done is I've taken that concept and then modernized it, and I've created a series of sewing patterns. So for this one, this is the tee. I created this in 2022. I also have a jacket and a different bomber jacket. So I have about 3 bog patterns. And I felt that I would start with this one because this is the most basic of the 3. And if you can do this one, then you can pretty much do all the other patterns. For this design, I am going to be putting the traditional bog vertical and horizontal seam in the back. However, the sewing pattern instructions that are provided will be showing you in the front, similar to this design. If some of you know me from Instagram, I'm more of a short form content creator. However, I'm going to start working on tutorials. So my long form setup is still in progress. So I hope you're patient with my lighting and editing skills. I'm still working that out. But the tutorial should be a great tutorial walking through each step. And if you have any questions, leave a comment and I can create some follow-up videos or help you respond in the comments section. Thanks, and let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start with the first few pages of the sewing pattern. I begin with a little lookbook showing you the different design options. I provide a brief description of the design itself as well as the difficulty level. Another critical section is the process. I highly recommend reading this. It answers a lot of questions and basically outlines what the pattern includes and how the process works. We're going to begin by selecting your bog type. Now I'll give you step-by-step instructions on how to select the different features. So step 1 will be the bodice selection. Step 2 will be the neck selection, and step 3 will be your sleeve selection. So now that we have our design selected, I'm going to have you fill out this worksheet. So this worksheet is included in the pattern, and it's pretty basic. You're just going to put in your size, your measurements, and then you're going to go back to the other charts to figure out the fabric size and the neck size. And again, there's a size chart in there, and so you'll just work off that size chart. And then we'll use this when you go to do your template markings onto your fabric. In this tutorial, we'll be making a bog tee. And here is the diagram that breaks down what a bog is. I highly recommend reading this and studying this chart. It shows you all the proportions and the critical guides that help the bog come together. For this tutorial, we are going to use bodice A in the T-length version. We are going to use neck A with the ribbed neck opening and sleeve A with the regular hem. So now we're going to take our worksheet and we're going to go to the template booklet, and from there we are going to select the template you are using. Now this template is going to be based off of the size and also your design options. Also, using your worksheet, we're going to cut your fabric down to the size that is in the requirements, and you're going to end up with a rectangle. Make sure to pay attention to your width versus your length and your grain line. Paying attention to all the guidelines, we're going to fold it on the center back with right side facing. Following all the dimensions on your template, you're going to mark all your guidelines, and then you're going to mark the placement of the neck opening. I suggest working outside inward. Be sure to pay attention to what guidelines are and what cut lines are. The cut line is indicated by the thick black line. Place your neck template on the fabric per the guidelines and instructions, paying attention to the front versus the back. Cut along all the cut lines, including the neck opening. Not all sizes use the full fabric, so pay attention to your cut lines. It's critical that all cut lines are precise. Do not overcut. Before we move on, let's do a quick fold so you can understand how the bog comes together. Lay the fabric flat, take that top edge, and you're going to fold it towards the middle point, which is the underarm seam. Then you're going to take the side seams and fold them towards the center front, and this is how the folds of the bog work. So I'm having a disclaimer, because of this fabric is more of a jersey athletic fabric, I am not going to be serging any edges. The first step is going to be finishing the vertical edges of the bodice center front with an overlock or zigzag. Again, I did not do that for this design. We are going to align these finished edges of the center fronts right side facing, and we're going to stitch them together. All seams are going to be 3/8 inch or 1 centimeter unless I've noted them otherwise. And we're going to press the seam open. The next part is going to be a little bit tricky, so it's really important to pay special attention to your edges. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to refer to the diagrams A, B, and C in the booklet. Continuing with wrong side facing out, you're going to fold the top edge of the sleeve forward at the shoulder notches towards the underarm and bodice, right sides facing, per the diagram A. Align the center front notch with the center front seam and pin in place. Before moving forward, clip the corner where the bodice meets the back sleeve in detail 1 of the pattern. It's super critical to not overclip this, and if you have really stretchy fabric or fabric that frays, I do not recommend clipping. Align sleeve edges and pin. Starting at the center front, work your way towards the angled clip, pinning the seam edges together. Make sure the edges are even. When you reach the clip will expand as you pin the two edges together. See detail 2 in the pattern. If you don't have a clip, you can just stretch the fabric. From the clip, continue pinning to the sleeve. There will be a little bit of excess, so at this point, you're just going to ease the fabric between the sleeve edge and the clip. If you're using knit, you can stitch the seams together using an overlock. And if you don't have an overlock, go ahead and just stitch a regular stitch, and then you can finish the seams with a zigzag. For wovens, I would just do a regular stitch and then finish that seam edge. Alright, so this is probably the hardest part for anybody, and I get the most questions on it. So what you're going to do is when you get to that clip, you're going to have to do a little maneuvering with the fabric. The fabric is going to want to bunch, and it's going to want to go in different directions. And what you're going to need to do is you're going to want to flatten that out as you sew. You don't want to overly stretch, but you do want to put a little bit of tension to keep that fabric as flat as possible, and do not get the clip in the stitch. If you have to go a little bit farther past 3/8 inch, 1 centimeter, go for it. You might need to arc out a little bit. And if you don't have the stitch, if your fabric's a little bit easier to work with and you didn't do the clip, go ahead and just gently curve around that, keeping that fabric flat. Here's a close-up of the clip and the seam line and how the seam goes around the clip. Instructions call to press the seam down. However, I'm going to press the seam open from the wrong side of the fabric first, and I'm going to do this sleeve to sleeve. I find that this makes a crisper press. Flip the bodice right side facing out and press the horizontal seam down. As you come to the underarm portion, you'll notice that there is a slight curve where the clip occurs. Now we are on to section 7, all bodice neckband ribbing for knits and wovens. Cut the ribbing to the size indicated in the tables. With right sides facing, stitch short end of ribbing edges together and then press that seam open. Fold the ribbing in half lengthwise, wrong sides together, and press the fold. Then you're going to section the ribbing into 4 equal parts and pin at each point. Point 1 is considered the back seam. Before attaching the neckband, make sure that you've added your neck opening notches onto the bodice. These are indicated on the pattern template for the neck opening. With right sides facing, align the neckband notches with the bodice neck opening notches. You're going to align the center back notch of the bodice with the back seam first. Then you're going to work your way around aligning all the other notches. You're going to need to ease the fabric between the pins. For knits, stitch the seam edges together using an overlock stitch. If you don't have an overlock, you can go ahead and use a regular stitch and then finish with a zigzag. And then for wovens, use a regular stitch and then finish that edge seam how you normally would. Again, for this sample, I am not finishing my edges because of the fabric. Press the seam down towards the bodice, and then as a choice you can top stitch using a zigzag or a twin needle. For this design, I did not choose to top stitch. Moving on to section 9, we're going to do the sleeves. Place the sleeve wrong side facing out. I do provide 2 ways to finish the regular sleeve. The first way is we're just going to finish the raw edge with a zigzag stitch depending on your fabric, and then you're going to turn the hem towards the inside by 2 inches and stitch down an 1/8 inch from the finished edge with a zigzag or twin needle. For a cleaner finish, you can turn the raw edge in a 1/4 inch and press, and then turn the remaining allowance in and stitch the concealed edge down, and this will conceal all raw edges. And you want to complete a final press of the finished hem. And you're going to do this for both sides. For the hem, we're basically going to follow the same instructions that we did for the sleeve. Again, you have the 2 options. You can have a raw edge or you can have a concealed edge. And be sure to final press the hem. And that is it. That is the bog tee. And as you can see, we skipped some instructions because not all of the designs were included in this tutorial. However, I think once you have the basic bog down, you can virtually do anything, and I think all the other instructions are pretty straightforward. Please be sure to leave a comment on areas that were still confusing, or let me know how you felt about this tutorial. This is my first tutorial, as I mentioned, so any feedback would be awesome.